Meeting of February 24th, 2021. Commissioners, please mute as we stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing while we hear the statement of values. Commissioner Chiricuro. Remember to unmute. Still can't hear her. I tell you what, I can go ahead and read it for today. Our statement of values. As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all. Thank you. You can be seated.
I'm not sure, this is Gloria, your staff liaison. Priya, we cannot hear you, so Lance just read the statement of values, so do we need to troubleshoot for her audio?
Mm-hmm.
She just came back.
Thank you. I lost audio, so I just got back in.
Oh,
can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We can keep moving forward.
Yeah.
We have absenteeism today. One commissioner who's out. I'd like to hear a motion to excuse Commissioner Hero.
I believe we should do the roll call first, I believe.
Oh, you're right. I zoomed right past that. Every single
That's
meeting,
okay.
one thing. All right, roll call, please, Elizabeth.
Commissioner Biagini? Here. Commissioner Chiricuro?
Here.
Commissioner Wang?
Here.
Commissioner Ikezi?
Here.
Chair Salame?
Here.
Commissioner Hero? No answer. Thank you.
Motion to excuse Commissioner Hero and wish him good health.
I'll second it.
Second.
Seconded by Chair Salame.
Okay, can we please call the vote?
Yes, one moment. Commissioner Biagini?
Yes.
Commissioner Chiricuro?
Aye.
Commissioner Wang?
Aye.
Commissioner Ikezi? Chair Salame?
Yes.
Commissioner Ikezi?
Unmuted? Hello?
Yes. So your vote to excuse Commissioner Hero from the meeting is, your answer is?
Yes. Okay, I'm getting really confused because I have two presences on the screen, but okay, I have the phone presence and my screen presence though. So okay, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
No problem. Thank you. So that was the vote.
You.
That was the vote to excuse Commissioner Hero. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
I hear that the motion passes. So
Yes.
we'll move on to the declaration of commission procedures. Commissioner Chiricuro.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. The chair of the commission directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the commission. Any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent hearing. Applicants will be allocated up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals following staff presentation of the item. Other speakers will be given up to 2 minutes. The applicant is allocated up to 5 minutes for rebuttal of comments. No additional comments will be accepted upon the close of public hearing, although the Commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. Special procedures, time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. Appeal of Commission actions must be filed in writing within 7 calendar days. End of procedures.
Okay. Copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each of the items on the agenda are available from the Planning Division office on the Friday afternoon preceding the meeting and available online. So in this part of the meeting, we're allowing applicants, members of the public, or interested parties to request an item be continued without hearing, withdrawn, or taken out of order. This is the exception section. Are there any request applicants? Are there any requests applicants, the public or the commission for continuance or exception for any of the items on tonight's agenda?
Chair Salem, no, there are no requests.
All right. So hearing none, we can move on. However, the Planning Commission has 7 members. Whenever the full commission is not present, applicants have that option to continue their item for another meeting. And I think we're at 5 today. Yes.
Yes, but we don't have any public items for discussion.
Oh,
So.
well, that simplifies things considerably. And then, so we can, Secretary Chirkuru, can you read the consent calendar info?
Commissioner Chair Kuru, you are muted again.
I apologize. This is too many gadgets around.
No, we
The
understand.
procedure for the consent calendar is as follows. Consent calendar items may be enacted, approved, or adopted by one motion unless requested to be removed by anyone for discussion or explanation. If any member of the Planning Commission, staff, the applicant, or a member of the public wishes to comment on a consent calendar item or would like the item to be heard on the regular agenda, please make your request now. Items listed on the consent calendar with associated file numbers constitute public hearing items. On today's calendar, we have the Planning Commission meeting minutes of October 28, 2020, and Planning Commission meeting minutes of January 27, 2021.
So is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion
move-
to approve. Oh, sorry.
All right, so we have Commissioner Chirkuru motioning and Commissioner Biagini seconding, I believe.
Yes.
Thank you. And we'll wait for the vote.
And Mr. Chair, if any commissioner needs to abstain from, they can simply state that which item they're abstaining from when Elizabeth calls their name.
Okay, thank you.
I think not everybody is present for one of the 2 meetings.
Okay. Motion is to approve the consent calendar. Commissioner Biagini,
Aye.
Commissioner Chair Kuru,
Aye.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
And
Commissioner.
But
Okay.
I think that's where we have Commissioner Wang needs to abstain from the October 28th.
abstaining from item number 1A, Commissioner Huang, the October 28th meeting because you were not present? That would be the appropriate action to take because you were not present, to abstain from the minutes of October 28th. May we mark you down as abstaining from that vote?
Yes. So Commissioner Wang,
Yeah. Yeah. For 1A, I was not there. I just for the 1B. Yeah.
thank you.
Commissioner?
Commissioner Ikezi, Commissioner Salam, Chair
Yes.
Salam,
Yes.
Commissioner Casey. Possibly you could raise your hand if that's possible to say yes.
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. Okay. This is very confusing again. Sorry. Yes.
No,
yes.
that's okay. And your vote to
No,
approve
I
the
vote. I vote. Aye. My vote
Thank
is
you.
aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. So the motion passes with a verbal abstention on 1A for Commissioner Wang.
Mhm.
So we move on to public presentations. Elizabeth, are there any members of the public that would like to briefly address the commission on any item not on the agenda?
No public presentations.
Okay, so we can move on to public hearing items. And in this case, we only have a single item, which is the study session on the draft El Camino Real specific plan. So if I followed my procedures correctly, we're down to the point where we can hand over to staff to present the study session info.
All right, thank you. I'm going to
you.
go ahead and share my screen as we have a presentation for you. And can everyone see the slideshow presentation?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. So my name's Leslie Xavier. I'm a principal planner here in the planning division with the city of Santa Clara. And tonight with me, we also have Alessandra London, who is the consultant for the El Camino Real specific plan process. And she's going to be tag teaming this presentation with me. So I'm going to go ahead and start it, and then she's gonna pop in when we get to the meat of the presentation. So this is our agenda for this evening. We're going to do a quick overview, a little overview of community input. We're going to go over the key elements of the specific plan, some plan updates and objective standards, and then next steps. And then we'll follow that with question and answer session and then public comment. So project overview. The El Camino Real project is a specific plan for the El Camino in Santa Clara. The process was started in 2017, and we're coming to the completion of that process. It's been very long. This is a grant-funded process that was initiated by the council back in 2017 when a lot of development was starting to happen along the El Camino Real. So one of the things that the specific plan is going to do is it's going to refine and implement the 2035 general plan vision for the area. The El Camino Real specific plan area was what's called the focus area in our general plan. The specific plan will also create goals, policies, and design standards for any new development, identify specific improvements and actions to achieve the vision of the plan, and address all the required specific plan topics. Along with the specific plan, we've prepared an environmental impact report to assess any of the potential environmental impacts. The environmental impact report was open for public comment through the month of December and January. The comment period ended on January 25th, 2021. And our environmental consultant is currently responding to all of the comments that we received on the EIR. And the EIR will be brought forward with the specific plan to the adoption hearings. So the El Camino Real is what's known as a priority development area in Plan Bay area. And Plan Bay area established these priority development areas, or PDAs, as areas that are a priority for walkable transit-served development. The Plan Bay area is a partnership between Bay Area Metro, formerly ABAG MTC, and the city of Santa Clara. And the grant we received is from MTC. And just for reference, the Bay Area itself has 170 PDAs. El Camino Real is just one of them. So El Camino, our planning area, is 3.2-mile corridor. It encompasses both sides of the El Camino, from Lafayette Street to the western city limits, so just past Lawrence Expressway. You can see that there on your screen. And this is just a little bit about the project timeline. We started the process with visioning. We moved into some workshops and surveys and developed the land use and transportation plan. We did study sessions with the Planning Commission and City Council. Then we went into policy and plan framework. In September of 2020, we did an open house over Zoom for the community to review the draft plan document. And then we circulated the EIR in December of 2020 that went into January of 2021. And now we're here in February with a study session before the Planning Commission, and we're going to follow this with a study session in March for the City Council, and then adoption hearings in April and May of this year. So a little bit about the community engagement that we did for this plan. One of the things we started with was pop-up events, so small events around the community where we had some boards and questions for the community to answer. One of the big questions we had was, what would you like to see along El Camino? And one of the biggest responses was walkability. The corridor is a very large street. It doesn't have a lot of street trees and cars moving quickly. And that was one of the highest priorities for those that we received feedback from. And along with that, the open space. And as you can see on the screen, there were a number of other items that came up as being important for El Camino. So we did some online surveys. Some of the top issues were traffic congestion, again, the lack of street trees and open spaces. Most people wanted more housing and more housing types. And then improved transit options, better bus shelters, direct access to the Caltrain station, and more frequent buses. And then in one of our workshops, we talked about land use. And this is just an example of one of the activities that we did and how we sort of came up with our strategy for land use in the plan area, which Alessandra is going to talk about in a little bit. And here's just some of the key takeaways from that land use workshop: higher intensity development activity centers, a variety of housing choices, making sure we account for any privacy impacts. A lot of the El Camino Real corridor backs up to single family detached residences. Also supporting existing retail, and then adding more parks and public spaces, especially at activity centers. Some transportation key takeaways were improving signal crossings and providing better connectivity to the Santa Clara Transit Center where Caltrain is, and a future BART. Removing on-street parking along El Camino to accommodate for protected bike lanes. And then finally, widening sidewalks to add street trees and pedestrian scale lighting. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Alessandra. She's going to talk about in more depth the key elements of our plan. And then I'll come back after.
There.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, I think
okay.
My, hopefully I'm not muted.
No, you're good. I can hear you.
Okay, good. Good evening, staff and commissioners. As Leslie mentioned, my name is Alessandra Lendine. I'm with Ramey & Associates. We're the planning and design consulting firm for the El Camino Real plan. And I'm going to walk through some of the kind of the key high level topics and sections of the plan. So starting with kind of the big picture vision and desired outcomes, these desired outcomes, they implement that big vision for the corridor and represent all of that feedback that Leslie just reviewed, feedback and input and priorities we received from the community over the course of the project. So people wanted to see more parks, plazas, and open spaces, additional landscaping and street trees, a more walkable environment with better mobility and connections, and additional transportation options both along and to and from the corridor, as well as efficient and shared parking. And then another big focus area was, especially for residents nearby the corridor, was compatibility with adjacent neighborhoods. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Residents and visitors and community members and stakeholders really wanted to see El Camino Real, transformed into both a local and a regional destination with a mix and a diversity of uses, as well as kind of a balanced approach to housing with an array of housing options and affordable housing as well. And then there was also discussion about beautification along the corridor, including green building and sustainable infrastructure, such as green streets improvements, and generally supporting health and well-being. Next slide. So next I'm going to talk about the land use plan for the corridor. So the plan focuses the most intensive development and public improvements at key nodes nodes of activity, such as intersections, large intersections, and commercial areas. And we call these the activity centers. And those would be, for example, Moonlight Center and Santa Clara Town Center and Lawrence Square. And then and those correspond to the regional commercial mixed use designation. And then the areas in between are corridor mixed use and corridor residential. And these are kind of feature a lower intensity mix of commercial and residential uses. And I'm going to talk about each of these in more detail and kind of the character of each one. So regional commercial mixed use. These are, again, those big activity centers such as Santa Clara Town Center. And the intent is to allow a mix of kind of the current one-story retail that you see along the corridor right now, along with redevelopment with horizontal and vertical mixed use. So retail on the ground floor with residential above, up to about 5 to 6 stories, and 55 to 100 dwelling units per acre. There is a minimum commercial FAR required, that's 0.2. And their ground floor commercial is required along El Camino Real. Parking would be accommodated mostly in structures and underground to support pedestrian-oriented frontages and facades. And each regional commercial mixed-use center is required to provide a large publicly accessible open space, as well as significant public streetscape and pedestrian improvements. Next slide. So throughout the plan, we have, specifically in Chapter 4, we have a number of conceptual diagrams which illustrate kind of how this might play out on the ground. So this is just one illustration of what the Moonlight Center could look like in the future, with a large central plaza, a new internal street that kind of breaks up this big super block, as well as additional pedestrian and bicycle passageways, and a mix of potentially some one-story retail buildings, as well as vertical mixed-use buildings with ground floor retail and residential above. And there are additional drawings in the plan itself for Santa Clara Town Center, how that might be adapted, as well as Lawrence Square. The next would be corridor mixed use. And so these are kind of medium-sized parcels along the corridor, often at key additional intersections, but kind of smaller cross streets. And division here is, again, it could be a mix of one-story retail and horizontal or vertical mixed use with commercial on the ground floor and residential above at 4 to 5 stories and 45 to 65 dwelling units per acre. Parking is required to be behind buildings, below grade, or in structures. And commercial is required in specific locations along El Camino Real. Again, mostly corresponding to kind of key intersections. And then you might see kind of some shared open spaces, but there isn't the same type of public open space requirement that there is for the regional commercial mixed use areas, which are these very, very large parcels and areas. Next slide. And then lastly, we have corridor residential. This designation applies to some of those smaller and shallower parcels along the corridor where development is more constrained. So you would expect to see kind of low to mid-rise residential building types, such as garden apartments and townhomes at 3 to 4 stories and 16 to 45 dwelling units per acre. Commercial ground floor uses are allowed and encouraged, but they're not required in this designation. And again, this is kind of the lowest intensity designation. It provides a really good transition to some of the single family neighborhoods directly behind the corridor. Next slide. Maybe. It's thinking. Yeah, it does not want to go to the next slide. Okay. Frozen. I've never had this happen before. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. So neighborhood transitions. So transitions, this was definitely a focus, a big topic area among community members, particularly residents nearby. So this map kind of shows some of the typical conditions along the corridor. So in the orange, those are parcels that directly abut a single family residential home or parcel. And so that's where we focus kind of the most stringent kind of transition strategies. Next would be that teal color. Those are parcels that are across the street from a single family residential parcel. So again, we have transition strategies in the plan, but thankfully the street provides some buffer. And then lastly, in the navy, those are parcels that directly abut or across the street from a multifamily residential parcel. So you don't have to have quite as sensitive a transition because those are already across or adjacent to, in most cases, a multifamily or multi-story building. Next slide. Okay. Oh, there we go. So some of the neighborhood transition strategies that are included in the plan are a 45-degree daylight plane, and I will talk about that and show a diagram of what that looks like in a minute. Increased building setbacks, particularly rear setbacks, adjacent to single-family homes, upper story step back. So you see that in these two images here, how the building steps down closer to the single-family homes, as well as incorporating kind of more detailed architectural articulation and smaller scale or house form building types and varied roof lines, again, more similar to a single-family home, as well as privacy strategies such as orienting primary windows and balconies away from existing homes and providing opaque and dense landscape buffers. So these diagrams illustrate some of those strategies. The top two show that condition where a new development would be directly abutting a single family home to the rear. And you see in the kind of the red diagonal line, that's the 45-degree daylight plane. So the building envelope cannot be outside of that daylight plane. And that really forces kind of this step down approach and larger setbacks. And then you see as well the kind of the tree and landscape screening buffer, as well as providing varied roof forms that are more house-like. And then on the lower two diagrams, this illustrates the condition where the new development is across the street from a single family home. So at least you have the buffer of that street width. But again, there's a daylight plane and it starts at the wall plate of that development, as well as, you know, encouraging individual building and unit entries and architectural articulation that's more similar to a single family home type. Next, I'm going to talk about the mobility framework and the right-of-way concept for El Camino Real. So this mobility framework diagram illustrates kind of the high-level framework for both El Camino Real and the cross streets and kind of priority modes for each. So the vision is that El Camino Real will transform into a multimodal complete street for all users and mode types. And then of course you have cross streets that have different priorities. So your really large arterials such as Lawrence Expressway, those are your vehicle priority access corridors. There are a few bicycle priority access corridors such as Los Padres Boulevard. And then there's a few transit priority access corridors such as Monroe Street and Keeley Boulevard. And then I'm going to talk about some of the priority pedestrian crossing improvements a little bit further on in the presentation. So this diagram shows the existing conditions of the El Camino Real right-of-way. So right now you have, it's a 120-foot right-of-way, so very, very wide, 3 lanes of traffic and a turn lane, and on-street parking, as well as a median. And then the sidewalks are very, very narrow, only about 8 to 9 feet in width. And and bus boarding is from the sidewalk, and there are no bike facilities currently on the corridor. Next slide.
It's thinking about it.
Okay. It might be the size of the file.
The size of the press, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of graphics.
Come on. Sorry.
Hopefully it will move on to the next one.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. There is an interim concept for the right-of-way. So this is what we might expect to see in the shorter term. So the idea is to remove on-street parking to accommodate a protected bikeway. And again, in the shorter term, this could be accomplished with a kind of a less expensive physical barrier, such as a bollard. Bus boarding would still be from the sidewalk. And you might start to see, as parcels redevelop, some areas with wider sidewalks and additional street trees and streetscape furnishings. Next slide. And then this diagram illustrates the kind of the final long-term concept for how El Camino Real could be transformed and reconfigured. So again, removing on-street parking to accommodate a cycle track, which would be protected by a permanent 3-foot raised median. And then adding bus boarding islands, which would be kind of extensions of the curb, where the cycle track would actually move behind the bus boarding island and prevent conflicts between bicyclists and buses. And then as parcels redevelop, they would be required to provide a dedication or a public easement to meet the new requirement for 20-foot wide sidewalks, as well as providing additional street trees and streetscape furnishings. So here you just see 2 images of what that actually looks like in real life. So on the left is an example of a bus boarding island, and you can see how the cycle track moves behind the bus boarding island. And then on the right, that's a cycle track where they've actually used a landscaped median as the buffer. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the more detailed street and public realm improvements in the plan. So this map shows kind of the priority pedestrian improvement areas. Again, they're focused mostly in those key areas of activity or activity centers. So the regional commercial mixed-use centers and areas of the plan where commercial uses are required on the ground floor. And then, and I should say that at those regional commercial mixed-use centers, those big blocks will need to be broken up with new streets and bicycle and pedestrian connections. And then it also shows priority intersections for new pedestrian crossing improvements. Next slide. So some of those crossing improvements could include additional sidewalk build-outs, median refuge islands, which would help with crossing these long distances, decorative and high visibility crosswalks to call attention to the crossings, hawk signals, there's already a couple of these along the corridor, and pedestrian detection. Next slide. So these photos and diagrams show on the left the existing conditions of kind of the sidewalk and the streetscape. So as you can tell, the sidewalks are very, very narrow. There's very few streetscape furnishings, so very few benches, trash receptacles. There really aren't any trees at the curb. They're all in kind of the setback area. And then streetlights, while they are new, they're mostly auto-oriented, and only a few of them have a pedestrian scale kind of attachment. So The idea is that, the idea is that as parcels redevelop, they would be required to provide an easement or a dedication to meet this new 20-foot wide sidewalk requirement. And so you'd have a nice big 5-foot planter zone with landscaping and street trees between kind of the walk zone and the youth cycle track, additional pedestrian scale furnishings such as benches, pedestrian scale lighting attachments and such, a big wide walking zone, and then a setback or a frontage zone where there could be, say, outdoor dining and such. So it is important to note there are some utility constraints along the corridor as they relate to some of these street tree recommendations. So in the green, you'll see areas where there aren't really a lot of utility conflicts. There's the potential to add additional street trees and rain gardens from the face of the curb 3 to 5 feet back. Then there's this kind of condition in the middle, which is partially constrained. It's that kind of purple color where there are some storm drain and sanitary sewer lines that would need to be potentially relocated to plant additional street trees. And then the areas in the red show where there's multiple utility conflicts under the sidewalk and where street trees and rain gardens might not be possible, and we might have to, instead it might have to be like raised planters. Next slide. So again, some of those street tree landscaping and stormwater recommendations and improvements in the plan include planter strips with additional landscaping and street trees. Where there are utility conflicts, it might mean above ground planters in some areas. There's also a number of recommendations for stormwater management, such as curb cuts and flow through planters or rain gardens, landscaped medians and buffers, permeable paving, and then planting native and drought tolerant landscaping as well. And lastly, I'm just going to go over the open space framework in the plan. So right now there are a number of large public parks just outside of the corridor, but there's really not a lot of parks and open spaces along the corridor itself, with the exception of Civic Center Park. So the idea again is that each of these big regional commercial mixed-use centers would be required to provide a publicly accessible, privately maintained open space. And then in addition, of course, all new development will be required to follow Santa Clara's existing parkland dedication requirements. And on the next slide, you see kind of what that might look like. But in conversations with the community members, they really focus on wanting an array of kind of public gathering spaces that would promote activity and a sense of identity along the corridor. And this is what that might look like. And as you can see on the left, that's the bottom left, that's the existing public plaza at Santa Clara Town Center, as an example. So since the public draft was released, we put the public draft on Open Town Hall and solicited feedback from the community members in that way. We also we had an advisory committee meeting on the public draft. So we got comments from our advisory committee members. And then a few months ago, we also had a public workshop highlighting the key elements of the plan and asking for public feedback. And so since then, we've kind of been consolidating all of that feedback and compiling final edits to the plan. So some of those include clarifying the density calculation in the plan. There was some minor modifications made to the right-of-way diagrams. So those aren't reflected in the current public draft, but I did show them to you in this presentation. And those were, reflecting some of the recent restriping along El Camino Real, and then adding that kind of interim right-of-way concept. And then some of the other comments we got were to add nearby schools to the bikeway and modal priorities maps for context, and adding Saratoga Creek as a bike priority corridor, and adding a section on the development or growth potential along El Camino Real, which is about 6,200 net new residential units and a reduction of about 395,000 square feet of retail, which is about an 18% reduction in retail uses along the corridor. And then lastly, this is one of the biggest pieces, is converting some of the original subjective design guidelines that we wrote into the plan into objective design standards. And that's what we've been working on for the last few months. And I'm actually now going to roll into kind of a presentation that explains what objective design standards are and why we are doing this. So objective standards. So I'm not sure, you know, some of you or most of you might be familiar with some of this already, but just to give a little bit of background, the state of California has enacted a number of laws in recent years to expedite the construction of housing, particularly multifamily housing and affordable housing to ease the state's housing shortage. So state laws require local jurisdictions to adopt objective design standards and to streamline the review and permitting processes for housing development. And these laws are aimed at reducing the extent of discretionary review for housing developments. So in response to these state laws, cities are now having to adopt objective development and design standards and streamline the project review and permitting process. Next slide. So what are we talking about when we say objective standards? According to the law, these new laws, they are defined as standards that involve no personal or subjective judgment by a public official and are uniformly verifiable by reference to an external and uniform benchmark or criterion available and knowable by both the development applicant and public official prior to submittal. And I'm going to give an example. Next. So in the past, cities in zoning ordinances and area plans, in citywide design guidelines would often have these very subjective design guidelines, such as, fences and walls should be constructed of high quality, durable materials. But what does high quality and durable mean? If you see that picture with the X on it of the chain link fence, that could be construed as definitely high durable, but is it high quality? Is that what you really want to see? So an example of how we might turn that subjective guideline into an objective standard is on the right. So fences and walls shall be constructed of brick, stone, concrete, textile block, wood, iron, or steel. Chain link, barbed wire, razor wire, and corrugated metal fencing is prohibited. So you can see on the right, it makes it very clear what materials are allowed and what materials are prohibited. Next slide. So where will objective standards apply? They mainly apply to multifamily residential projects and any mixed-use developments that have where 2/3 or more of the square footage is designated for residential use. There is some, different cities have been interpreting some of these new state laws a little bit differently. So some have decided that it also applies to single family homes. The laws were not quite clear. So all it says is something like it applies when they're to 2 or more units. And so some cities have decided, okay, well, then that means it also applies to, say, subdivisions of single family homes. So it's really, cities are still working this out and trying to figure out exactly what this means. Next slide. So where do objective standards not apply? Or basically, what would throw a project out of this kind of streamlined process, permitting and approval process? So anytime a project needs a variance or a general plan, community plan, or zoning amendment, they would not be eligible anymore for this streamlined review and approval, or a project that would result in 1 or more significant health or safety impacts, or a project with a historic designation. Next slide. what do objective standards achieve? So they eliminate subjectivity and personal judgment and provide consistency. They encourage streamlined and transparent approval processes. They discourage bad design by regulating site configurations, specifying materials, and the like. And very importantly, they protect the city from legal challenges and court-imposed fines for wrongful denial of housing projects. I think it's also important to note here, though, that not all subjective guidelines can be converted into objective standards. And while we can discourage bad design with objective standards, we can't always absolutely ensure great design. So it's, yeah. So just an example of how this might translate. Oops. Oh, okay. So sorry. This is the, that's okay. This was going to be a different one. But basically, this standard gets at kind of creating a compatible rhythm and pattern to buildings, and provides different options for how that might be achieved. So when we write objective standards, we try to ensure that there's some flexibility by providing kind of this menu of options and ways that this could be achieved, so that there is still room for creativity in the design process and flexibility. And I'm going to turn it back over to Leslie to go through next steps and some of the recent projects on El Camino.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with, we do have some pending projects along El Camino. There's 4 currently that are pending. One on the Mariani site, which has been on file for quite some time and hasn't really had any movement, but 3 other recently new ones that have been proposed along El Camino. And you can see them all here on the table, and the 3 relatively new ones. These are some elevations, images that you see for those. One of them is by Charities Housing. It's an affordable project, and it's actually going to exceed the proposed density for its site, but with affordable housing law, they can use the state density bonus to do that. We have another one that's proposed that's actually going to just meet our density requirement that we're proposing for that site. And then we have one that is not currently meeting it. It's at 24 units the acre, where we're looking for 45 to 65. So that's just a little bit about what's currently pending, and will be subject to this specific plan should it be adopted. So really our next steps are, we have a city council study session on March 9th. Following that, we're going to make any additional edits to the draft plan and finish up our objective design standards. And then finally, we'll be bringing this in late April to the Planning Commission for their recommendation to City Council for adoption, and the City Council adoption hearing will be in late May. And with that, I want to open it up to the Commission for any comments, questions.
Okay, so before we go to public, I'd like to go through a few of the hands that were currently raised. Commissioner Biagini.
Hi, couple of questions, and it's a little more specific. Lance, I think I actually have 4 questions. You can cut me off and come back to me if need be. One of them deals with, I'm looking at the residential corridor, and it occurred to me coming down El Camino the other day, just past Lafayette, there is a retail business. I don't know if you want me to say it by name, and they only have like a couple of parking spaces between the storefront and the sidewalk. I mean, you can barely fit in them, and I think a narrow driveway on the side. So right now, I'm looking at your diagram, and that's considered corridor residential. I also understand that that could include retail on the bottom. What would happen to a business like that if there's no street parking, you know, and they only have like, I think 2 places you can pull up a car barely between the sidewalk and the front door? What then would happen to a business like that?
So we do have a few locations along the corridor that do have that that instance where they have very little on-site parking, and that for the interim, we would allow there to still be street parking in front of those businesses until they redeveloped, or until we could come up with an alternative shared parking solution. But the interim is that they will retain their street parking.
Okay, another question I have. I think it's kind of minor, and you may have answered it in subsequent slides, but I'm looking at slide 29. I think you kind of answered it later, but I tagged it at the time.
Okay.
If you go to slide 29, I'm looking at the left-hand side of the bike lanes versus the right-hand side where you have a physical barrier, but you don't on the left-hand side. Is that just interim concept, and eventually down the road it will have either the raised, some kind of barrier? Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yes, that is
yeah.
the interim concept. Yes, as Alexander said, you know, there might be just some bollards temporarily until we were able to develop the full build out where you'd have a more permanent solution.
Gotcha. And Lance, if you will humor me, I only have two other relatively short questions, if that's okay with the chair.
Yes, please.
Okay, when I move to slide, oh dear, what slide number is it? Proposed pedestrian improvements, existing conditions versus the nice trees and the lights. Small question here. Let's see if you can get, you're almost there. It's slide 35. Okay, it's a personal opinion. I happen to be fond of the street light on the left because it brings a connotation of a mission city, right? Versus a street light on the right. Is that something being looked at as we develop, that we have a little design flair that touches back on our mission city when the time comes for the street lights? Is that under consideration?
Yeah, actually, some of those street lights do. Oh, sorry. Some of those street lights actually do have a pedestrian light attached to them. So at the pedestrian level, so the idea would be is to, you know, add that pedestrian light to those existing light poles. So there's very few of them along the corridor, but a few actually do have a ped light over the sidewalk on that. I'm
also talking about the design of it, rather than light industrial on the right, Mission City on the left. That was a comment. And the last comment.
So keep the Mission City, right?
Yeah, keep the Mission City vibe going. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And then the last question, this might be a little more difficult. We get into objective standards versus subjective standards. It's been something that's been an area of discussion back when we had an architectural review committee with planning commissioners. I'm going to use my words and try not to insult anybody, but glass boxes that are ugly. Is how do you build that in a way that becomes an objective standard so that we don't end up with glass boxes? I mean, I'm assuming that's probably your struggle, but this is a concern. I think the look of some of those residential units that have gone up, and I'm not going to get into the argument about whether or not people like residential in El Camino. I mean, I think the look of them has really tried not to be a glass box. With the new laws in effect and this whole concept of making subjective objective, is that in the game plan of figuring out how to prevent ugly glass boxes? I don't know how else to put it. That's a tough one.
Were you going to say something, Leslie?
No, I was just saying, I mean, that's something we might have to think about a little more. I mean, we may have an opportunity to say something about a mix of more than one material. But again, it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it could be articulation. It could be don't paint everything white, you know, that kind of thing. But I'd hate to see, I hate to put it any other way. I hate to see some developer come in and short shrift it and just go up cheap. You know, please give us a little flair. That's important. Okay, that's it. Lance, back to you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Biagini. I think we're going to suspend the 3-question limit unless we get some abuse, which I doubt we will because we're all good citizens and we want to make sure everybody gets a chance. I have my hand up. I'm going to save mine because I'm hearing some of the same questions from others. I thought I saw Commissioner Kezi, but I've lost her off my list again. There she is. Okay. I guess the next hand would be Commissioner Chair Kuro, and then Commissioner Wang, and then I'll chime in.
Thank you, Chair. First off, I'm really excited for this project. I've been here 20 years and I've never felt it to be the King's Way. El Camino Real goes way beyond our city, but I'm hoping that when the King really passes to our city, it's finally alive. 3 comments, maybe 3.5. So I looked at the desired outcomes and all great outcomes. There were 2 things that I found missing within those. One, while I see diversity of uses, I don't see an acknowledgement of diversity in the community. El Camino Real is very rich in its almost pockets of cultural, zones, for lack of a better word. You have plazas or strip malls that show the Korean market. I love those places. The Indian markets, the mixed community markets. There's a lot of actual, ownership of these communities within these. And I did not find that acknowledgement come through in the desired outcomes. It's very important for this community. I drive by this, but I think it's very important for us to acknowledge the cultural sensitivity and the cultural integration into this project. So I'm hoping that you change or address an additional desired outcome. 2, I did not see any acknowledgement of public art in any of these slides, and I was hoping it would come later, either in the walkability or in the circulation, but nowhere was there an acknowledgement of public art, where it probably is, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, but as an urban planner, placemaking really becomes highlighted when you have public art, and public art that reflects Santa Clara County. And El Camino Real really being this long stretch that, practically runs through cities, it's very important to showcase what city of Santa Clara is. So I would like for the 2 to become desired outcomes. My 3rd comment was in the walkability, I did not see an acknowledgement of tactile walkways. I'm thinking out for those differently abled, the guide dogs that probably are guiding, some of the legally blind, where I've seen them in other Tokyo, Amsterdam, airports in Singapore, Rome probably, where you have special, sidewalks or acknowledgement and guideways for especially or differently able. So I want to make sure that those kind of paving or actual, difference in field texture is accounted here for. And I did want to see a little more on the objective standards, like Commissioner Biagini said. We don't want it to look boxy. I did see the Chipotle corner. There are not many people as the one that has the picture right next to it, which is Santana Row. And there's a difference in how a street intersection can influence that public plaza usage. So you want to make it more personal. I do not want it to become more of surface parking, because I saw the alcoves or, the U areas within those moonlight center visuals. And I want to make sure that we acknowledge that they really become public plazas and not surface parking, and that parking really be contained behind, similar to mountain views, similar to other more pedestrian friendly cities that I've been to. So just my comments. I hope staff, if you have a response, feel free.
Thank you. I can say that the plan itself, we do have policies, guidelines that address the public art and the placemaking. We didn't include them in this presentation, but that is a good thing to point out. Tactile walkways, that's a really good idea. I don't think we've ever talked about that at all, and that's something we can definitely check in with Public Works to see if that's something that would be possible to add, but that's something that we have not heard. So great comment, thank you.
And the cultural sensitivity?
And that wasn't something that I remember specifically coming up, but I think that's something that we can definitely work into the plan.
Yeah, I mean, especially El Camino Real, it'll be nice to acknowledge those cultural elements. Even though we are going to encourage a lot more of the strip malls going away, but it's just a nice acknowledgement, and I highly encourage that to become either a guideline, a policy, or some way or form.
And also possibly,
thank you,
including it as in the public art section as well.
Exactly.
Leslie,
exactly.
This is Rena. Sorry, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You are.
Leslie, I think we do have some policies about retaining small mom and pop businesses and supporting small businesses, which I think isn't explicitly about the diversity of ethnic businesses but I think it tries to get to kind of the unique character of El Camino and it not being just about strip malls and large anchor tenants. So
that's a good point. Thank you, Rena.
I acknowledge that, Rena, and thank you for pointing that out. I'm very supportive of the community encouraging mom and pop. It really is our heartbeat of the community. We're not the big corporations or box retail, but I do want to distinguish that it's not the same as cultural. I know you had it in your mind, but it doesn't come across if you're just saying mom and pop. But thank you. I yield, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Hong. Remember to unmute.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I probably unmute before then.
You're fine.
Yeah. So actually, El Camino Real, it's from east, mainly it's from east to west. So the buildings, it's you can see it's the north side and the south side of the street. My question is actually since for the south side, let's see if it's tall. I think probably it's okay since the shadow goes on the street. But on the north side, how about the sunlight goes to the adjacent residential buildings, just in case the residential building, they try to put the solar on the roof. So my question is it possible to limit the height on the north side, maybe increase the height on the south side a little bit, but I mean, it's not balanced that way. So I don't know if that's a good idea or not. That's one thing. Another one is, also I think the public artwork. Yeah, so when we talk about the Chicago, right, we all remember the Chicago bean. Oh, it's so impressive. I don't know, for our Santa Clara, maybe we have some creative artists, have something. When people go to Santa Clara, then they can remember, right? Let's see, we are talking about Chicago, we know the Chicago bean. When we talk about Wall Street, then we know the bull, right? So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone that wanted to comment back on his statements?
I can say one thing. So with the heights of the buildings, we do have that neighborhood transition, that 45-degree daylight plane that really does shift the height of the building away from the rear of the property and pushes it towards El Camino. which, will take care of a lot of the shade shadow impact that you're speaking of. And then each project that comes in, there's going to be additional review for those projects based on what they're specifically proposing.
Yeah. So actually, my point is that the south side, since they have the street, so probably we can increase that a little bit. Then you don't have this problem. Then, but in the north side, due to this limitation, then you have more constraint there, right? Yeah, that's just my suggestion.
Okay. Noted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner
thank you.
Wang, Commissioner Wang, just so I understand your comment, because we've talked about lighting and we've talked about transitions, but I'm not sure if I got your comment. Are you thinking that the height on the north side, are you concerned about it shadowing the street or shadowing the neighbors behind it? Can you tell me a little bit about the concern of the height on the north side of the street?
Yeah, the north side, my concern is it's not on the street. So the sun from south, right? So I concern about the shadow on the residential behind the buildings. Let's say if I live there, I try to put a solar on top of my residential, but the sun blocked by the high building, it doesn't make sense, right? So that's why I say, but on the south side of the street, even you go to maybe 6-7 story high, the shadow is on the street. Yeah, that's just my.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I think Leslie's response was how the transition policy is uniformly trying to create that separation between the taller buildings on El Camino and how they abut the single family residences that could be right behind it. But I think your point is interesting that maybe on the south side of the street, there isn't that interface issue, and maybe there's an opportunity for more height. Okay,
exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I got my hand up, so I'll have my turn, and then we'll have Commissioner Kezi. One of the reasons I somewhat suspended the 3-question rule is I've got 6. Hopefully simple and short ones. I wanted to echo the desire to have a mix of architectural styles because this is going to be a long, continuous road that really needs some variety to make people feel like they're traveling down an experience. It's not just the trench on the Death Star. It's actually a collection of individually conceived and designed buildings. I'm hoping that will continue on. Now, to flip over to a really nitpicky thing, is there any concern about police coverage for the public gathering areas, or are they going to be privately managed? So that's a question for to catch at the end of my other ones. How are we going to manage public safety and make sure that there's police coverage for the public areas? Next one would be gaps in the bike lane barrier. I know from other conversations and concerns from community members that I chat with, they have a concern that when we put up barriers to differentiate the bike lane area, it really becomes a huge problem for ADA or mobility limited people to get from a drop off or to get in and out of the space to reach the bus. I know the bus has a ramp area, but I'm just a little bit worried that if we can put continuous barriers down the street, we're going to create issues for people who have a little difficulty getting over them. And are there going to be cutouts for loading, unloading, ADA drop-offs and things near the buildings so that they aren't traveling great distances down the street to reach their destination? Now, next simpler one. How's the street maintenance going to work for this? I have never seen how street cleaners and if a police officer needed to pull someone over, how do they manage it when there's bike barriers and other divisions in the road that aren't traditional or not more common? Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Save that one. And then is there a provision for Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to save the last two and let you see if you guys want to jump in on those so far. Architectural
Sure.
styles, police coverage, and gaps.
So the like if a police officer needed to pull someone over, they would either pull them over in the lane or pull them over on a side street, right? That's the motor vehicle code of how to do it. But you know, people don't always follow the motor vehicle code. But as far as like ADA and crossing over to the bus boarding island, there'll be actually, you know, the plan would include, you know, ADA crosswalks across the bike lane to that bus boarding island. So there wouldn't be, you know, there wouldn't be a barrier for them to get up and over. It would be an ADA crossing right there to get to that bus boarding island. Does that answer, is that what you were talking about? Does that answer your question on getting over the barrier?
I have to keep toggling my mute. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Does that create a bump effect for the bicyclists because you're going to raise up for ADA access so that they'll be traveling down and then have a rise and a fall as they cross over those?
It should be just like if you were at a street crossing, like at a corner, and you have the ramp that goes down to the crosswalk. It would be the same sort of treatment.
All right.
You have the yellow plates with the bumps. It would be that sort of same grade to go across and back up to the bus boarding island.
I kind of assumed that, but it was good to hear the actual.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Response.
Street cleaning you mentioned. So yeah, with a median and you know a bike lane, street cleaning is going to be something that we have to figure out. There are special street cleaners for bike lanes like that. That would be one option, but that is a future implementation step that we would need to figure out. So I guess one thing we can also add, you know, this plan lays out the right of way for El Camino Real, but there's still a lot of design work that's going to be required to actually implement it. And that would be something that will occur after this plan would be adopted. So it's typically called the Streetscape Master Plan, where they do the, you know, design level detailed drawings to actually figure all those things out. And it would be at that point where we'd really nail down those details. But this sort of just lays out what the future that we're moving towards El Camino, for El Camino.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, I've had a number of times where the embedded barrier discussion came up in my architectural training and CRP training, and one of the things they always were fighting is the drainage issues. It creates a natural barrier to drainage. It's a cleanliness issue because it gathers trash. You gotta keep it clean. So many little details like that can ruin the experience for the bikers, especially if there's garbage accumulating in the lane. So I'm hoping that all balances against the idea of fixed barriers. Maybe we want something less, more signage, or not signage. Boy, I really am not prepared to offer alternatives, really, but something other than a fixed barrier.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me hit you with a couple other simple ones. Is there a provision that you're looking at, given the lighting, for possible seasonal street decoration lighting? Because I know a lot of the cities benefit from giving some seasonal identity to a large area like El Camino. So hopefully we could bring that in as well. Wreaths, colored lighting, something that pops that whole area out as a special destination, not only just for shopping, but just as an experience. When you're driving, you can see that you're moving through a city that cares a lot about its environment, you know.
I know that the existing light standards, they do have the ability to put the banners on, which could be changed seasonally, right? So that's something that currently exists. But yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I was
also along the lines encouraging the developers to provide lighting consideration for their facades, because they could create even a more festive look to their building on evening traffic. The last one, and this is a shoot for the moon kind of thing. Since we're going to probably encourage communal parking or shared parking, is there any possibility of a looping shuttle, not a VTA solution, but an actual looping shuttle that would move up and down El Camino in our section of it to carry people to and from parking or carry their packages and things back to their car, so they could get a quick access to and from sections of the El Camino that aren't necessarily close to convenient parking.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I mean, other cities or even private developments have done it. VTA's done it where the demand exists. So I wouldn't rule it out. It's not something that this plan is going to, implement, but it's not to say that it couldn't be something that comes forward in the future. This plan definitely wouldn't preclude it, and would for sure encourage something like that.
Yeah, I was hoping there would be a way that we could encourage developers to contribute to a communal shuttle or something so that they could get business in areas that are maybe quite distant from parking, especially in the case for, like we were talking about, for ADA and other other people trying to reach the business. If they have to go a long ways, they'll find other solutions. They will go other places. So hopefully we can make it a convenience. All right, so I have covered my questions. I think we have Commissioner Casey, and then we try to open back up to public comment. I know Commissioner Biagini's got her hand back up, but we'll see how we can go through this. Commissioner Casey? Remember to go off mute. There she is. Okay. I'm worried we don't hear her.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Okay, you are now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry again. Okay, so Leslie, thank you very much for the presentation. I have three quick questions. The first one is, if and once this plan is approved, how is this going to impact a developer coming into the city and who wants to build a large, maybe redevelop the Moonlight Shopping Mall or redevelop the Lou Mariani land? How is this plan going to impact their project?
So any new development project will need to comply with the specific plan once it's adopted. So when a project is brought to here. Sorry.
Okay, so how exactly would that work? If it's a PD, then, a lot of things are negotiable. I'm sure the city will encourage the developer to adhere to the specific plans, but are there going to be things that, is the city going to allow, you mentioned streamline review. Are the developers going to be able to get entitlement without any, for example, not coming to planning commission or going to the council if they meet the plan?
Yeah, it's possible. If they meet the requirements for the streamlined process and they have the right type of project, like they don't require rezoning or any other changes, then yeah, it would be just an architectural review.
Oh, wow. So this is going to be part of the new zoning laws that we're going to? Oh, so, no, this is going to be separate.
It will be, there will be a zoning district that we'll create for El Camino Real specific plan area, yes.
Okay, all right. And that applies to both large projects and the small projects, somebody who wants to redevelop a strip mall?
Yes.
Yes, it applies to anything that's multifamily residential and mixed use where it's at least 2/3 residential.
Okay, and so is that going to include the street plans? How wide the sidewalk has to be, etc. The street design. And the reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to understand the mechanics of how this will apply to developers who are coming into Santa Clara. Complying with the size of the sidewalk is part of the plan that if they do meet it's going to help them avoid go to straight to architectural review instead of coming to the planning commission.
Right. So the sidewalk lists are written in as a objective design standard in the specific plan. So that would be something they'd have to adhere to.
Okay. So sidewalk is probably the only thing that the developer has control over, right? The bus stops and the bicycle lanes, those are going to be on the streets that
correct.
we manage.
Correct.
Okay. So how is the transition toward this the new design going to work? Because we already have a huge amount of development that have been completed on El Camino, and I'm assuming that a design like this, unless you have some consistent, unless you have this throughout the entire El Camino or a sizable stretch of El Camino, it's probably not going to work too well. So
you're correct.
How do you envision this transition to this new design?
So it will be a transition over time. The first step will be to remove parking along El Camino Real, where we can. There's those few businesses we talked about that only have street parking for their business, where we'd need to leave their parking. But the first, near-term step would be to remove that street parking on El Camino Real. And then the second step would be to, stripe a bike lane and do some temporary like bollards for separation, right? And then future steps, would be adding the bus boarding islands and adding a physical barrier. So it will be over time. It's not going to happen all at once. As you said, it's a very long corridor. And, if somebody had enough money, we could just come in and do the whole corridor at one time, but that's not how it works. So yes, it's going to be a transitional process over time, starting small. But as go ahead.
Is that covered in EIR? Oh, hello? Can you hear me?
Leslie, you kind of broke up, Leslie.
So that transition, is that part of the EIR?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
So okay, it's part of the EIR. So I'm imagining that transition. For example, removing the street parking, which some commission members have been asking for forever. I guess he's now a council member. Are we going to have a separate planning for those transitions? Like, when are we going to do those things? And
yeah, so the removal of street parking will go along with the adoption of this plan. And then as we move into subsequent stages, then that would be, through our normal community process.
A normal community process.
Yeah. Commissioner Casey, there's actually like, 3 potential paths, right? We have the very fortunate situation that the city wins like our version of the lottery where we get a grant and we can like completely do the work along the corridor today and just not do anything related to those portions of El Camino Real that have those sites that we talked about where we know we can't remove street parking because the existing businesses depend on it. And there are just a few locations along the corridor that are in those situations where we have to, no matter what, unless those projects rebuilt, do transitions in those areas. So there's that option where we can do like something full along the corridor. But right now, that's really a capital project that isn't funded. So we're going to take it step by step where we look at the planning process. We do actually, I'm so sorry about the noise. Excuse me, family members. I'm in a public hearing, sorry. And we go project by project and kind of build out portions of the public right of way. And we will have the opportunity to just also with this action that would come before the Planning Commission and the City Council actually remove street parking to facilitate that. So we think it's going to be a transitional process, but there is the option down the road for us to, get a grant, have, general fund money, although that doesn't seem the likely situation today, given all the budget issues we have. But that's something that in the future might be different, and we can take action to actually implement this plan.
Oh, okay. So this will be handled like a capital project, capital improvement project.
Yes, once we're at kind of a level of plan level investment, and then we have to get to more engineering level drawings to build that out. But yeah, this would facilitate that process.
Okay, so capital projects, planning commission typically is not involved. So I guess the city is going to just manage it once this plan is approved.
That'd be correct.
Okay, understand. Thank you. My last question, and thank you for your indulgence, Chair. Are we coordinating any of this with San Jose and Sunnyvale, our neighbors?
So when we were looking at the plan, we've looked at Sunnyvale's plan, and they actually have proposed commercial land use designations immediately adjacent to our large activity center near Lawrence Expressway. So it's very compatible with what we're proposing. Their street right of way is also staying the same as ours. They're not modifying as it stands now, their right of way. They're working on their specific plan right now. They do not have one adopted, and they don't have a draft yet fully on their website, but they do have some information. And then as far as San Jose, so the specific plan area itself, it stops before we get to San Jose, to the border. So we're not proposing anything. Let's see if you can see this. There you go. So we're not proposing anything that would, immediately abut to San Jose. So San Jose is all the way off the map over here. But they initially sat on our technical advisory committee at the beginning of the process, and they've been notified of our developments along the way.
Yes, I was going to add that as well. That VTA and Sunnyvale and others, regional agencies were on our technical advisory committee and provided input throughout the process.
So then I'm assuming that are you talking with the reason I'd like to know a little more about the San Jose side, because if you keep going down that road, and then you're going to hit that massive Google project that that Google wants to do near the VTA, the transit development that they're trying to do. And if you keep going down,
that's pretty far down into San Jose. Yes, that's it. Their Diridon station.
Okay, so I guess you think it's far enough that it doesn't. It's not really going to impact what happens in our city.
Not along the El Camino Real corridor, no. In our section.
Okay, because once that transit center is redeveloped, I'm sure we're going to have to. A lot of people want to take a bus on El Camino straight to that transit center.
So you're talking about traffic impacts, correct?
Well, traffic impact and the public transportation.
Public transportation.
Yeah, because you want to be able to take bus from on El Camino that goes straight to the Diridon station, right? Wouldn't people want to do that? And then I guess how's it going to connect to
Santa Clara station as well? We've got one right there.
Right, and then how's it going to connect to the Santa Clara BART that's supposed to come someday?
Yeah, so the Santa Clara Caltrain station and future BART station is right just off the edge of this map. And VTA buses do, currently traverse the El Camino Real corridor. They have their express buses that have their route down El Camino as well. That connects to that Santa Clara transit station.
And is that part of the street design that you're considering?
So the bus boarding islands will actually improve VTA travel times because they don't have to pull in and out of traffic. They stop in their travel lane, they load and offload, and then they go on their way. So it'll cause a car delay, but it'll actually improve bus times.
Okay, so are people supposed to get off the bus at the Dearden station and walk to the BART station? Is that what the city envisions?
They could. I think for Santa Clara, we'd envision them stopping at the Santa Clara Caltrain station. But the VTA bus does keep going to Dearden, so that is an opportunity, yes.
What about the BART station that's coming to Santa Clara?
That would be at the same Santa Clara Caltrain station, so it'll be BART and Caltrain.
Wait, Caltrain is at the corner of Lawrence and Monroe, Reed, Monroe? Isn't BART coming to the Coleman?
So yeah, BART is coming to it's at the current Santa Clara Caltrain station, which is just on the other side of the university off of El Camino. There is a Caltrain station off of Lawrence Expressway as well, but it's not immediately adjacent to the El Camino Rail corridor. It's likely that people wanting to go to Caltrain would travel down the corridor to the Caltrain station on El Camino. There definitely is opportunity if you're near Lawrence to access the Lawrence Caltrain station.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm confused. So can you point to on the map how people will get off on El Camino and go to the BART station?
So unfortunately, it's not on my map. It's just off of my map. I don't know. I don't think
Yeah, it's just for the far.
It's just off of it. So maybe what I can do is.
But I think that's, that was definitely one of the impetuses for creating more of a multimodal complete street along El Camino Real, is to improve those connections for all users, whether it's, people, university students who are nearby who might want to walk down the corridor, or, bicyclists coming from a little bit farther away, or transit users who travel down the corridor and end up potentially at the Caltrain station or other destinations along the way.
So the Caltrain
station,
but first, can you see where the Caltrain station is on my map? So that's just our boundary ends here at Lafayette. The specific planning boundary ends here. But the bus goes to this transit station right here. So the idea is that, people needing to access mass transit who are on the corridor or adjacent to the corridor would use the VTA bus or their bike or their feet and get to this mass transit station. Alternatively, if you're all the way down near Lawrence, there is the Lawrence station that's north. It's pretty far north, but that's an option as well. Yeah, I would say it's more convenient if you're on El Camino to hop on an express bus.
That part, I was confused.
Okay.
So
the Caltrain station, Leslie pointed out, also is where the BART phase 2 for Santa Clara, that's where the station will be.
The one near the university.
Okay, but that's not part of the plan that we're talking about.
It's not. It would provide the connection, right? You can, with our bike lanes implemented, you could bike there quickly. But yeah, it's not part of our planning area.
Actually, in our city's general plan, that area, Commissioner Acasey, is in the Santa Clara station area. It's actually a distinct area in the general plan.
Okay, so that's for another review. All right, thank you. I understand now. Thank you very much.
Great.
I'm done.
Sure, great.
Okay. So yeah, I understand it is sometimes hard to keep track of all the different options going on. We may need a giant overview. So with Commissioner Casey's finish, I think Commissioner Biagini had a couple of very short or quick questions. I'll let her do hers, and then we'll open it up to public, because I know there's people waiting.
Just a couple of comments. I really want to thank Rena. By the way, you sound like you have a lovely family. It sounds like mine. I really want to thank all of you for this fabulous PowerPoint. I'm excited about the project, and I'm particularly happy of the wide net that you cast to get the input. The other The last comment I want to make is I wanted to reaffirm what Commissioners Cherakuru and Lance both talked about in terms of what I think are very important: community art, recognizing the diversity, and some sort of shuttle. Back to you, Lance.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that wrapped up, I think it's a good time to open it to public input. And I know that we're going to have kind of a mix of topics for part of this because some representatives from the Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action have arrived in the meeting, but missed the open public comment section. So I'd still like to give them an opportunity to speak. They've waited patiently through our study session. So Elizabeth, can you help organize who goes next on the attendees, or whoever can manage?
Sure. Give us just a moment here.
Thank you.
Chair, was there someone in particular you wanted to go first? I thought I heard you say that.
Oh no, not at all specifically.
Okay.
The conversation happened in chat, and I just wanted to make sure that we gave them their opportunity to speak. And I don't know who's the first representative.
Okay, so just as a reminder, public speakers have 2 minutes, and I will have Kiran Singh go ahead and call the names.
Actually, I'd like to override and give them 5 minutes because I know this is actually on a different topic than the study session. Give us some feedback on our reach goals.
So 5 minutes?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair amount of time because it's a big topic.
Elizabeth, just to clarify, I believe that Chair Salim is requesting that the individuals who on the chat was named Sindhu Sagari identified themselves as being part of a youth group that wanted to participate in the public comment period. And I believe Chair Salim wanted to specifically give that group 5 minutes because they would have gotten that in that period.
Yes.
Okay.
They don't seem to have their hand raised right now, though.
So I'm getting some assistance here with this.
So I do see Sindhu Sagari's hand raised.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. Sindhu, you have 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sindhu and I'm a junior at Santa Clara High School and Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action. And I just wanted to request the Santa Clara City Planning Council to consider proposing an all-electric reach code to the City Council because our peer cities, Sunnyvale, Cupertino, Mountain View, and San Mateo County have all adopted all-electric reach codes. Furthermore, San Francisco, Morgan Hill, and San Jose have all passed some sort of natural gas prohibition, so it's definitely time for Santa Clara to follow in their lead. In the past few years, my generation has firsthand experienced the harsh effects of climate change. From year-long droughts to raging wildfires that plague our state, we've seen it all, and it's only going to get worse if we do not take action now. So with that, I once again request the Commission considers proposing an all-electric reach code. And thank you so much for your time and have a great day.
That was impressive. 1 minute of 5. Is there others in the group that wanted to speak also? Could raise their hand or...
Yes, there was. I saw in the chat.
Maybe give them an aggregate.
Carolyn. So Carolyn, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Maybe Zhao. And Carolyn, per Chair Salim, we will do 5 minutes. Okay. Carolyn, are you ready to speak?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi there, good evening. My name is Carolyn. I am a junior at St. Francis High School, and I'm speaking today with other Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action members. I want to echo the comment that Sindhu made before me, supporting that Santa Clara adopt an all-electric reach code. Not only do gas-powered appliances contribute towards climate change, they also exacerbate health risks for homeowners. 2 decades of health research illustrates that indoor air can be up to 100 times more polluted than the air outside due to emissions from gas stoves. Exposure to these pollutants, even in the short term and at low levels, can cause respiratory illnesses such as asthma. In fact, children in homes that cook with gas have a 42% increased risk of asthma. The protection of the well-being of our residents is not negotiable. To ensure the health of our residents, I urge the Santa Clara Planning Commission to propose an all-electric reach code to the City Council. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think there was one other, Alexis.
Yes, Alexis, you have been unmuted.
Hi, my name is Alexis. I am a sophomore and I attend Santa Clara High School. I'm also here with Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action. Climate change has immediate implications around the world, and this is especially true of the Bay Area. Scientists predict that on current trends, by 2100, global warming will result in a sea level rise of 5.5 feet, which will have widespread impacts throughout the Bay Area. By 9 years from now, in 2030, sea levels are projected to have risen as much as 12 inches. And the consequences of climate change have already posed threats to our safety in the forms of wildfires and droughts, and will soon have farther repercussions for our community through rising sea levels if nothing changes. Energy emissions make up the vast majority of Santa Clara City's emissions, at 69% for both residential and commercial buildings. I urge you to propose an all-electric reach code to the City Council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's actually great to hear our youth getting involved at this level. I know it's their future we're talking about. Was there anybody else that
Chair
really...
Salim, can I just
Yes.
make one comment to those speakers?
Sure,
A
please.
timely comment. We actually have our climate action plan study session with the City Council. It got delayed from last night's City Council agenda, but will be heard on March 1st. And that, if you are interested in elevating your comments to the City Council, I think they will be talking about the reach codes very directly on the agenda item. So you may want to participate in that hearing.
You're on mute, Chair.
Excellent advice. Go straight to the source of power. Go straight to it, and it'll get there a lot faster. I think you'll find a lot of support for those ideas within the commission and the council. So hopefully your voice will be heard directly. Can we go ahead with a couple of the other people that had their hands up? I think Councilman Becker and also Tom. I don't know who Tom is, but hopefully Tom, let's start with him and then give Councilman Becker his opportunity.
This is Tom Qualia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I did have a deja vu at the start of this. I just want to let you know, I got on at 5:45 and you were live. So it was back to my Sunnyvale roots, listening to a party line because all of you were talking before the hearing, and it was great to hear the stories. Still looking to see where Sophia Loren is. Anyhow, just as an FYI for everybody, I wanted to address two items tonight. One is this workshop. Staff did exactly what they were asked to do over the last 4 years, and we participated in the process since the very beginning. The outreach, the work sessions, the expertise they brought in, it was excellent. The resultant document is well done. The problem with the biggest problem with the document, it's a broad brush approach to a existing density of 20 units per acre on the bottom side, on the north side of El Camino, up to 65 units per acre. That application is very, very difficult, even with all the mitigations and the criteria that staff has established. The north side is very shallow. It's 300 and less feet in depth, and it's very difficult to get up to those densities and get down to a transition to where you're compatible with the neighbors to the north. We are actually the applicants for 3155 El Camino Real. We've had an active application for 2 years, and we've been working with the neighbors. We comply with the existing general plan. We're at the corner of Calaveras and El Camino, and we are going to have a tough time to go up to 65 units per acre and still meet the expectations of the neighbors that we've been working with. So when the appropriate time comes, we will be coming before you and the city council, and our request is going to be to either pipeline our project that's 2 years old, our application, or redesignate us to a different that corridor residential, which is 16 to 45 units per acre. That we are at around 25 units per acre. That density allows us to be sensitive to our neighbors that are single family homes, detached, single story, that are 7 feet away. And it also allows us to be sensitive to the brand new project on Wheels and Deals that was just approved at 25 units per acre as well. So we have a very difficult challenge in that we have about 4 to 5 units per acre just next to us, and 25 units per acre just next to us. And to go up to 65 units per acre with a minimum of 45 is virtually impossible in order to meet some of the existing policies of your city existing general plan with regards to character and compatibility. So thank you for the time. We will be back with a specific ask at subsequent hearings before the Planning Commission and City Council when you're ready to ratify the specific plan.
All right, thank you. Yeah, definitely work with staff, and they'll find a way to address, and then if necessary, agendize the issue directly.
For the public record, Tom, could I please have your last name? If you're still there.
I believe it's Quaglia with a Q. Q here. Thank you.
It's yeah.
Qualia.
Qualia. Tom Qualia, Bayview Development Group.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you. I guess Councilman Becker. Or Citizen Becker in the case of this conversation. President Becker. All the titles.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, hello, my Planning Commission family. It's really great to hear you guys. I mean, I could be a commissioner if you want me to be. I'm kidding. So I wanted to say first, I apologize to Sindhu, Alexis, and Carolyn. We really apologize last night. We had a marathon meeting, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday next week. But I wanted to say that I love hearing your guys' voices, my former Planning Commission. I watch every meeting because I love to hear your guys' input, and I look to you guys for guidance. But I do like a lot of what you guys are saying tonight. I love what Vice Chair Biagini was saying with no glass boxes. I'm on her side on that one. I believe that we shouldn't be blocking out solar, and at the same time, I think we should be protecting Koreatown. Those are my three little things I wanted to input on. But I'm just really glad to hear from you guys. I love watching you guys, and I think you guys are doing an astounding job, and I'm glad staff is there to support you guys. So once again, good to hear from you. See you guys.
Okay, that's great. Hopefully we'll have a cross-functional dinner at some point in the future and talk directly. Are there any other public comments that wanted to be heard? I'm not seeing any hands up from the public. So before going back to commissioners, I think we need to do the official process of closing public hearing. Is there a motion?
I move we close public hearing.
Second.
Okay. Hopefully I did it right this time. We need to hear the vote.
It'll be just a minute. The motion is to close the public hearing. Vice Chair Biagini.
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Kuru.
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Casey,
Yes.
Chair Becker. Chair Soleil. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
blast from the past. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So I actually heard it all being a unanimous closure. So I think we can move on to some post presentation deliberations. I think Commissioner Akezi, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me now? I'm really sorry to be asking.
Yes, you're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right. So the reach code, would that be part of the new zoning law ordinance? Since we had so many students making comments, I wanted to.
Commissioner Casey, this is Gloria, your staff liaison. Typically, the building, that is a part of the building code, and it strictly goes directly to council. So they are the ones that deliberate on any changes to any of the building codes. It's not a land use function. So unless that were made specific to the plan, it would not be a component that would be under the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. It would only be a recommendation. But again, it's being taken up by the City Council as part of any building code amendment that they adopt.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's my first question. Second, so the Tom from the Bayview Development Group had a interesting point about 3155 El Camino. I'm looking at that plot of land, and yeah, that corner lot is hemmed in between Wheel and Deal, which I think we approved of maybe last year or a year before, and the single family homes in the back. And we've seen many developments in the past where the landowner wanted to develop a strip mall in El Camino, and there's always a conflict with single family owners in the back. So when we propose this plan, do we look at whether what's being proposed is actually feasible to build? Was that some part of the review that took place?
Leslie, do you want to answer that question?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes. Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yes, we did take that into consideration when we were developing this plan. It is possible to accommodate everything on that specific plan. For each developer or property owner, their performance is going to be different, and the market is going to be different at different times. So when we were planning this, we do believe that density appropriately fits on the site. However, it's individual developers are going to have different opinions about that, and the market's going to be different at any given time as well.
So it's your position that he says to 65 units per acre is not feasible, but you're saying that you think it's feasible.
Yeah, so if you take a look at the specific plan itself, we do have a rendering on how a project could be accomplished on the site, meeting all of our requirements. Let me see if I can bring it up really quick. Let's see. There we go. If you can all see my screen, this is just a site plan of what's, a potential concept that's in the specific plan itself. There are no townhomes in this concept, right? There's no townhomes in this concept, so that's the difference. is that we're proposing, that the 45 to 65 dwelling units per acre is more of a apartment or condo development, and not so much a townhome development. Tom's project includes both. It has some stacked flats at the front and townhomes in the rear, which is why there's a difference. And maybe right now for them, the market doesn't work for this type of project, but it definitely is design-wise feasible. And when we did our market study, it was shown as something that could be done. If that makes sense.
This meets the step back. This meets the step back requirements in the proposed plan. And can the developer do this with wood framing without going to steel framing?
So there's, if you can see now, this is a rendering sort of from the rear. Here's the single family home at the rear. There's a setback that goes to sort of a 1-story element, and then up to a 4, and I think it's a 5-story element, correct? Which is more along El Camino.
Well, so we are going to be affected by the market conditions, but now that I look at this, Leslie, I really love this, because this will give us a tool to discuss with developers when they come in with like super low density projects. We can tell them that yes, we did feasibility study, and this is the kind of density that you should be able to achieve. And it's going to give us a tool that we can use in discussing new projects with developers. So I really like this. This is really amazing.
Yeah, and it's one possible concept for this site.
Yeah, and this is Rena.
Okay,
I just want to add. This is Rena. I just want to add. We've been doing some performer work, and we know that townhomes are definitely by far the most profitable type of development opportunity right now. And the densities on this site do not facilitate that, right? It would be it's much higher densities than that. So we also recognize that next to single family homes, people would probably prefer something of a lower density. Our specific plan process included a community, a citizen advisory committee. We did outreach for the specific plan. So, we want to be respectful of the planning process that we did to bring this specific plan forward, post a draft plan, do all of the engagement that got to these densities. And we're also aware of the fact that no site is going to be easy for us in Santa Clara, and that we are being obligated by the state to plan for a lot of housing. So, we do want to kind of be respectful of all the different factors. And when we bring the specific plan forward, we're going to talk about this site specifically so that you can have a full awareness of really the issues that Tom mentioned today, because I think they are struggling with trying to get to these higher densities on this particular site. And we want you to be aware of it so that when we bring the plan forward, we don't have that plan all of a sudden interacting with the development proposal. So if you want to facilitate that development proposal, we really would need to change the draft plan right now before it gets adopted to being able to facilitate the project that they were proposing. So when we bring the plan forward, we're going to actually ask you about that site in particular and kind of give you a little bit of the context like Leslie shared with you. And I'm sure that Tom will walk you through a little bit more with his site. But that's really, we have some projects that have been going through the pipeline. And that is one project where the draft plan and what a development proposal is proposing don't line up.
I see. You said that something like the 65 units per acre will meet the step back requirements that will be part of the plan. Are those requirements consistent with what's been built already? Because that step back issue has come up again and again with other multifamily projects on El Camino, and I haven't heard of any lawsuits filed by neighbors because of what's being approved. And one of the goals that you stated for this plan is to avoid litigation. So is this consistent with what's been approved in the past and what's been being built on El Camino so far?
Yeah, so I would definitely...
actually. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Alexandra, because you're more than...
Oh no, I was just going to say the transition standards, the 45-degree daylight plane that we have in the plan is actually more stringent than what is currently allowed. So right now they don't actually, Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is very defensible.
Yeah, there's definitely projects that are currently built on El Camino that would not meet that standard.
I see. Thank you very much for answering my questions. I yield.
Okay, thank you. After Commissioner Chair Kuru, I'd like to propose a short recess and then we can wrap up for the evening. Commissioner
Thank
Chair
you, Chair.
Kuru.
Mine is very short. It's just a follow-up. Probably staff or Abe can help answer. Is there a provision with this specific plan for pipeline projects? Because even though I'm all in favor, always encouraged high density, affordable housing components being part of it, is there a provision for projects that are fairly well big? Because I feel we're unraveling a sweater here. But I am curious, and it can be addressed in the later, but I don't want to go without knowing that there is an option for pipeline.
The specific plan does not currently have any pipeline provisions. So I did share the one slide that if you want me to go back to it really quickly for you.
Yeah.
There
are
a reason.
Yeah, if I could just add, Priya, that the plan has been in basically under study for a couple of years, and the project that Rena was referring to just got filed a couple of months ago. So that was filed with the understanding that the specific plan was nearing completion. So it wouldn't be classified as a classic pipeline project. It was really more maybe of a preemptive filing, if I could be so candid.
I understand. I mean, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here. When a project, before it comes to the city, know that there's almost years of planning that precedes it coming to as an application. There's a lot of investment. There's a lot of thought process. I'm not saying that's something that is a planning decision driver, but I want to acknowledge that it's easily at least 4 or 5 years in their court where they're planning, pro forma analysis, design, architect, code compliance, back and forth. By the time they come to us, they hope that they've understood the codes, the regulations, the requirements to make that application. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have gone into it. So our assembly that it's only 2 months in is not taking into consideration. It will be a disservice, especially for these kind of large projects. Even for a small residence, it goes without a doubt. It's many years or months at least go into it. When this kind of large projects, it's a much more intensive. There are stakeholders. There are.
I understand that, but let's be clear. We have had discussions with various folks that want to file applications on the El Camino, and all of them were advised prior to filing. So this isn't coming as a surprise to anyone. We have had these discussions, again, discouraged the application, given plenty of information. There's been a lot of meetings that have taken place prior to their application, and they were advised consistently that this would be problematic and that we were looking to fulfill the goals of the El Camino Real specific plan. So again, we have a lot of communication with applicants. They are fully advised, they're aware, and they will make conscious decisions how they want to proceed. So
I understand.
I just want to add one different point about the pipeline, which is the city council actually considered pipeline projects earlier in this process. I think it was in 2018, but we can get the date. It was certainly years ago when we had projects lining up on El Camino, and the city council looked through all the projects and advanced some of those projects and said, okay, let's move these forward. And the other ones, let's not. And let's advise everyone that we're not going to be interested in advancing projects until really we've matured the specific plan so that we can compare the land use plan as developed through the specific plan process with whatever applications are moving forward. So I just want to say that the council took a deliberate action to consider pipeline projects. That was like in 2018. Now, there have been projects, and I definitely don't want to do a disservice to 3155 because I think they have filed prelims earlier. And I know that they've been investing in trying to develop the proposal. They have been aware, though, that the specific plan got approved. That project, the Wheels and Deals project, was one of those specific pipeline projects that the council allowed to move forward. So it is, you know, an interesting fabric for them that they are looking at kind of their neighboring property that got to move forward at a different kind of point in time and sort of see themselves as a peer to that. So I just wanted to provide the context that the council did weigh in on pipeline projects previously and sort of a timeline and a service, I think, to the fact that this project has had some conversations for a period of time, much longer than a couple of months, where they were developing this plan, but during the specific plan process.
And where they clearly told that this specific plan would come in 2 months. I'm hoping you have all your records, because
yes.
If it's from 2018, one, we have a new city council fabric there. But I also want to make sure that it wasn't, there was no legally binding statements made or discounted. I'm just cautioning about all possibilities, and Xander, it's all your world after that. I'll yield, Chair.
We've had numerous meetings with this developer, and I've been at those meetings. So thank you for the
yeah,
words of legal caution. I'm in the loop.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for
that. It's good to know there's action and interest, so that it's all being handled.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you, Chair.
I would very much like us to move forward. I don't think there's actually a vote or motion to be taken on the study session. So we can have other conversation after, but I really would like a recess for a few minutes. So can we have a quick recess until
Sure. Should we do 5 minutes? Is that what you want to do?
8:20 or 8:20? Yeah, 8:20.
8:20? Okay.
That's for. Yeah,
Yes,
it's very short.
For the individuals, for the benefit of the public, do we want to close this item and come and restart the meeting at the end of this? I just want to know.
Yeah, I think that's why I was asking about any votes or motions. I believe Xander was saying I don't think there's any motions or activity. We can just say we're done talking about it for now, and then we'll come back after the recess and proceed.
So we'll resume the next part of the agenda then.
Yes, move on to reports. Okay. So thanks. Let's take a quick break.
Elaine, I'll go ahead and start the meeting. This will start the Zoom recording again.
You're muted, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start the meeting, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I believe we're back and we can proceed on. We have reports of commission, board liaison, and committee. Any announcements by staff or commissioners?
I have a question, not comment, to staff. Was usually City of Santa Clara has representation at the Silicon Valley Summit, and I'm probably blanking on the name right now, that's conducted by the Chamber of Commerce. Were we not? I think it's today or tomorrow. Are we missed this year? Do we have representation virtually?
Commissioner Chirukuru, do you mean the joint venture Silicon Valley
Yes.
State of the Valley event?
Yes.
You know, I do think that there is some representation by Santa Clara. And Silicon Valley Power usually kind of organizes that. And I'm not entirely sure this year it was really on many people's radar because it was virtual and I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, you know, what kind of outreach was done. But I do think that there is representation. I mean, it's not like people are sitting together at a table, right? But I think there are people participating in the event, or as in attending the event
nice
virtually.
to get the invite. I mean, usually, I know last year, Commissioner Suds, then Council Member Suds, and I don't know if I attended from here, from City, but I think I was there on behalf of City too. So I wish we were informed again at Planning Commission that there was a summit option to attend. So I know
and I
it's
think
a standard.
what we can do in the future, because I think we've relied on Silicon Valley Power to like prompt the invitation, right? I mean, if we want to put this similar to like, hey, we think that it's really good to always send somebody to the Cities Association, right? Like we can make this one of those standing things. So, you know, ideally someone else is paying for it, but if not, I mean, the commissioners have a budget and you guys can utilize it to
right. Yeah. That's
and
what
just
I was
an
relying on.
FYI, those sessions are recorded, so they will be made available afterwards too for viewing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay this year since it's virtual. It's usually a hubbub of network. I mean, it was, I believe at one point, Kamala Harris was the guest of honor, although she did it remote because there was a filibuster event. But it's got some high-profile speakers, and it's a very enlivened and energetic session. So I would like to be at least notified so we have an option to send commissioners to that event.
Sure, we could put that on our calendar to have a reminder next year.
Yeah, thank you. That's all, Chair.
Excellent, thank you. That's a great reminder. Are there any other common announcements, staff or commissioners? No? Okay, let's move on to travel training reports, requests to attend trainings. I believe Commissioner Hong has some comments that he'd like to bring up. And Commissioner Casey. Let's start with Commissioner Hong.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got the email. I tried to attend the Planning Commissioners Academy. I formally applied now. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Was there any other attendees planned for that? No?
Do you think that Commissioner Ricky could be interested in that? Elizabeth, can we reach out to him?
Yeah,
See if he's
absolutely.
interested?
Absolutely. So just as a reminder, it is taking place on March 25th, 26th, 31st, and April 1st. The cost is $250 per commissioner. So we could do a retroactive vote at the next meeting that would allow us to go ahead and register Commissioner Wang and Commissioner Hero should he decide he would like to attend.
Yeah, I thought we had a conversation about this a while ago, or was that a different event? I'm losing track of.
We had talked about this
Same event.
previously, but the date was never certain, and the League of California Cities website was never updated. So just recently, they've come out with the details. So,
I'd actually like to put my hand up on it also, even though I've been here for a while and I'm chair. I'd still like to see what the academy is teaching and have it as a basis to work from.
Sure. So the staff liaison, Gloria Chiara, maybe can confirm that we would need to do a vote to expend the funds and then officially do a retro vote at the next meeting.
Yes, I think we can just take a general consensus that there's interest in sending some commissioners, then we can come back with the actual amount to send the number at the next meeting, and then that vote can take place. But we can go ahead and make the pre-reservations or reservations.
Yeah.
I see Commissioner Biagini and Akazi both have their hands up. I assume there's interest there too.
Yeah, I brought it up a few times in the past, and I am absolutely interested in attending. There's always good stuff to learn. So again, this year I would be extremely interested in attending.
Yeah.
Commissioner Biagini, you should do a commercial for them. Because I
Not a
want to
problem.
attend. I want to attend the commissioner training.
Go, girl.
It seems like an excellent opportunity to really get caught up on what's brand new.
You'd benefit from it, Rena, I swear.
Wouldn't hurt. So Commissioner Akazi, did you have other things you wanted to say? No? Hand went back down again. Okay, so that's the training.
So can I confirm who it is that I would be registering? I have.
Okay, can we just raise our hands for that?
Well, I'm looking at 3 different screens at the moment. So,
yeah.
So maybe we can just confirm.
You can just mention your name. Yeah. So Commissioner Biagini, potentially Commissioner Harrow, and Commissioner Wang wants to go.
And Chair Salam.
Chair Salam.
Yes, please.
So we have 4 commissioners. Okay, thank you.
And
Would that be a Brown Act violation?
No, not
It's going to be virtual, so I think you're okay.
It's a training session. It's not any business that you're conducting.
Yeah.
So
there's an express exemption. There's an express exemption Brown Act for trainings. So you're welcome to all attend, even if it was in person. But yeah, the caveat is you can't all huddle in the back and talk about city business.
Exactly.
Don't.
Thank you, then.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes total sense. All right. If there's nothing else under training, are there any reports to be made for that, or no? Planning Commission budget updates. I know we have a couple items to talk about there.
We don't have the memo because we gave that to you at the last meeting, so we really just provide that once a month. But if there's any budget questions, we can certainly look at those if you have them.
Yeah, I made a small request through Elizabeth, but I was just going to ask for a pen for the.
Yeah, certainly. If you want to mention that, then we will bring that back also with the final vote for the registration for the Planning Commissioners Conference, and then we can bring that up too. So there was a request for an expenditure for some technology equipment. So.
It's just one of these, but unfortunately, the one I have doesn't work for the new commission iPad or for the city iPad. So I would like to get one additional pen. They're not cheap, but they're certainly not outrageously expensive.
Okay.
And are we ordering that, or you already have one?
No, I'd like to order it because I haven't got one, and it's for the city, so
Okay.
it'll stay with the pad when the pad gets returned, as long like with the charger, et cetera. It's part of the equipment for the pad.
Okay, so I
All
have all
right,
the
we'll
information
bring
on
back
that.
that amount.
And I can go ahead and order that. It was just brought to, excuse me, it was just brought to my attention that Commissioner Ikezi has also requested to attend the League of California Cities Planning Commissioner Academy.
Okay.
So it will be 4 that I'd be registering.
Alexa, hang up.
Elizabeth, it's potentially 5 depending on Commissioner Hero.
Right,
Yes.
right.
I just want to make sure he's completely healthy and able to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
attend.
will definitely confirm with him. Absolutely. Thank you.
And 6 with Rena.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in attending. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, my apologies. I was told differently. Not a problem. Thank you.
All right. So I see Commissioner Kezi's hand is up again. Is there something you wanted to discuss on the budgets?
Yeah, I didn't raise my hand quickly enough in the previous section, but I'd like to get an update on, filling the vacancy.
Actually, that's not even, that's later.
Yeah, I believe that's coming up. Is that March 9th that it's coming up, Elizabeth? There is,
Yes.
we did see a staff report.
Yes, that is correct. I was told by the clerk's office it would be at the March 9th meeting that they would appoint a
Great.
second
Thanks a lot.
planning commissioner.
Okay.
Are
So
we
that,
past the deadline?
no. We have you actually brought us into upcoming agenda items number 2, which is exactly that. So we'll see in March, the council meeting will discuss our remaining open seat, correct? That is how I understand it.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, good.
Oh, we're going to be discussing, they're going to be discussing how to fill the seat. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's an actual candidate that's being voted on. I thought it was just a discussion to reopen, right?
Oh, okay.
Now I'm confused.
You.
See, you got me confused. So maybe Rena or Elizabeth or Gloria can tell us what the expectation is for that meeting.
I'm not sure. I thought it was an appointment too.
I thought it was an appointment. I thought it was an appointment, but I will definitely check with the clerk's office, and I can send an email to all of you tomorrow to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very
I'd
much.
like to understand how they got to the appointment. It would be helpful to understand if it was reopened for applications or whether they went down the list to the next available pre-approved candidate.
Yeah,
that would be
right. There was a prior council action to utilize the existing list. So unless there was sufficient vote to overturn that action, they may have used the existing list. So I didn't see anything in the notes regarding a change to that selection process, but it may not have been included with the director's report that that the staff receives.
Yeah, it would also be helpful to know how long these lists have, what their expiration date is basically before they open it for other candidates, because we may have new additional candidates that'd be interested, and we're kind of excluding them by continuing to use the existing list. Okay. So city council actions.
Okay, there's only a couple of items that pertain to the planning commission. So on the most recent city council meeting on the 23rd, yesterday, there was just actually a action for the target setting and priority strategies for the climate action plan update. That was actually continued to the March 1st city council meeting. And I'm going to pull up my other notes. And then the council meeting on the 9th of October had one item that you previously heard, and that was a public hearing item on the comprehensive sign program for parcels 4 and 5 for the related Santa Clara project. And they did approve the sign program with an amendment to the public service address time to be provided on 1 Tasman East sign frontage at 10% per hour. So that was something that the commission brought up about the PSAs and the availability of that space. So they did adopt that program, but with that stipulation to feature public service announcements every hour.
Oh.
And those are the only items that pertain to the Planning Commission by City Council.
Chair Celine?
Yes.
I just wanted to go back one to upcoming agenda items.
Okay.
So we actually have the rhythm of these meetings. The next meeting is March 10th for the Planning Commission. And we had a development project that was going to time for that, but there's something that kind of occurred where we know we need to delay it, and it will not be able to occur on the March 10th meeting. So at this point, we actually don't have agenda items for March 10th. We start getting incredibly busy in April. And once we release our public document for the draft zoning code update, we're going to be reaching out to the commissioners to ask for more dates from you all, because at your request, and we think it's a great idea, we will have multiple study sessions on the zoning code update. And then when we actually bring that document forward, there will be multiple hearings. So what I'm trying to say is we have the opportunity. It's only 2 weeks, so I don't think I can throw together something to make the next meeting like, completely unique and fabulous, but we could do something like a study session on the zoning code update, but I don't think it would be that useful for everyone. And we just did a lot of study sessions on our various different specific plans at the end of the year. So I was going to suggest that unless, I'm speaking out of turn, I don't think we have items, and I wanted to see if the commission would be open to canceling the next meeting on March 10th and recognizing that we're going to be adding more meetings to the already scheduled meetings kind of in the spring and summer time frame to kind of push through the zoning code process.
That's a very reasonable approach. And I'll push back on a different option. We've been looking for a way to get together with the council for a joint dinner / conversation. Maybe that would be a good time to plug in a session.
I can ask. Their calendars are really busy, of course.
Yeah.
But I will definitely ask if it fortuitously works out. We at least know the planning commissioners are completely free. And then we can see if that can be arranged. But let me, because I didn't actually forward that request.
Yeah.
So we can ask about that with our city clerk's office who coordinates that to see if that would be a timely joint. I don't know what they're doing these days. If it's like a joint,
it would be
virtual
just
meal,
a virtual get together,
and
we'd all bring up a McDonald's or KFC or something and enjoy our meal. But yeah, I think we all know that we'll be available. So it's really only up to the council if they feel they could do it. And I think the planning for that should be so much simpler. It's just block out an hour or two and say, can we just get together as a larger collection of city officials? That would be so much fun. It's been great in the past, and I look forward to the possibility again, especially since the council has changed its overall collection of people very dramatically in the last election. So, okay.
I would like to comment that I did see on the TMAC, the tentative meeting agenda calendar, later in the year that there were some of these commission board dinners with council. Good. So just heads up to you. I will also take a look, Rena, as to what dates there might be if they're already on the calendar.
Thank you. I mean, if they're already planned, that would be.
Yeah, I did see something at one time. It does change quickly, the schedule. I will tell you, I do know usually it does take months and months and months of planning before these meetings take place. So
yeah,
just kind of a little heads up there.
I understand. I just love the idea that if we're going to have a gap time, let's fill it with something not intense. And those are less intense because there's not a great deal of agenda planning other than be there for an hour. So that would be great to hear. All right. So I think from what I understand, we're up to entertaining a motion to adjourn.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Last.
All right. Well, we'll wait.
You're on mute, Priya.
No, I hear her. No, I hear her fine.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, go ahead, Priya.
Sorry,
Now you know.
I'll text you. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, this was a follow-up. We had this last year. I think it was the moratorium or something on medicinal marijuana. And I don't know the status of it because I know we're right around February end. So either staff can bring it to next meeting, but I was just wondering the status on that moratorium.
That was last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was last night.
Actually, the council, it really isn't appropriate for the planning commission to undertake that unless you're given direction by the city council. And they did, they did actually consider that last night. I believe it was last night.
Oh,
yes. Yes.
Yeah. And
but it
so
did come to planning commission.
I know, but that's when there was a proposal to make the ban permanent. That was a code amendment. So because that was a code amendment, you were requested, and that was part of the zoning code. But again, the opening up and studying of the whole marijuana issue was recreational marijuana was directed by council to begin with. So it has to go through the planning commission as a step consideration prior to the ordinance adoption. So unless they give us authorization, otherwise we would not be looking at it independently.
Got it. Okay. I mean, so the moratorium holds? That's what I was trying to.
Right.
Okay,
For right now, yes. There was not support to lift the ban, I believe. But I think they asked. Oh, I'm sorry. They asked to come to bring back some more information so they can consider whether or not they want to revisit the issue. And that's all it was. It was just that at this moment they were going to put the ban in. But of course, the code could always change. So I think they had asked staff to bring back probably some background information on what would how they came about the recommendation to begin with, and then look at whether or not it was worthwhile to reopen that issue.
Got it. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. I'm all for adjourning if you want to go there.
And second.
I hear a motion to adjourn and a second.
Thank you all.
Turker motion and Commissioner Biagini second.
Shall we consider this a unanimous vote? Just verbal vote?
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor. Yay.
Very good. Thank you.
Yay.
Thanks,
awesome.
everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Uh-oh, we lost.
Yep, good night. Bye.